What's up, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode. I'm your host, Christian Fowler. Joining me, as always, my co-host, Gabe Coon. Gabe, it's been 2 long weeks, I think, since we've seen each other at this point.
Yes, it's been a minute. I have been traveling from coast to coast since
Oh.
last year, man. I am a cultured person when it comes to the United
Where'd
States.
you go from coast to coast?
I was in Peekskill, New York,
Yeah.
last weekend for a cousin's wedding, and then this past weekend, where I'm coming from now, is from San Diego for a cousin's wedding. Had a great time at both, and I'm ready to get back rolling. I will say though, getting back last night. Of course, we record on Monday. I know it comes out on Tuesday. Breaking news: Gabe is cultured. I love the scroll. But one thing that really got me is I don't know when it happened, but in Memphis we have completely shifted to summer weather, like just unbearable heat and humidity. I got out of the car to go into the San Diego airport. It was 75 degrees, not a cloud in the sky, sunny. Nice, beautiful Pacific breeze flowing through my hair. It was great. Get off the flight from, I had a layover in Houston to Memphis. Get off the flight, walk out of Memphis International. It's 11 p.m. 88 degrees, 75% humidity. It just didn't give me a moment to like chill, get used to my surroundings. Just kicked my ass. And contrary to popular belief and what the scroll's telling you, I don't hate Memphis. Sometimes I can hate Memphis weather. Yeah. Memphis weather is very hateable, to be honest with you, especially in the summer.
It's a fair judgment because it quickly switched over the last several days to where we're here. We are 90 plus humidity. Feels like you got a quilt on every time you walk outside. I'd imagine it's a sweaty time of year for you.
And I can add, like, Kenny and I are, similar size. Like the under boob and the lower back sweat just gets going immediately. You cannot avoid it. It just hits you.
It's that time.
Embarrassing too. It's embarrassing too. You never want to be that guy with under boob and lower back sweat immediately.
Yep.
Show up to this scroll is just
Kenny has obviously.
I've been off for a while. I deserve the scroll to be after my ass.
Yeah. Yeah, well, we are. What did you? So we didn't have an episode at all last week because Kenny was at the beach. I was at the lake. You were.
I was home actually. I was actually home.
You were home.
But I had made it home that day.
You had just gotten back from New York.
Yeah.
So we've all been around the block, but glad to be back at least for a couple weeks. I'll be out in 2 weeks. I'll be at the beach in 2 weeks, so I'll be out.
I'll be here. Yeah. Count on me. Count on me.
Well, you guys will have to count on Gabe and Kenny through that time because I'm not missing these summer vacations. But like I said, we were at the lake. It was great. Wonderful time. Got back on Tuesday. Pretty chill weekend. You might be surprised. Played golf on Friday. Went and ate dinner.
Played golf.
But I got a set of clubs finally.
I was gonna say I didn't. This is a life update I wasn't ready for, brother.
Yep, I got.
I might come out to you. You live. I hit some of those Mississippi courses.
Yeah,
we go to Timber Truss. What do you think?
There's better
this weekend. Come on, Saturday.
There's better courses, but okay.
I mean, I'm just saying. It's what I know. It's what I know.
I know. I'm just giving you a hard time. Yeah, no, I'm in the game now. I'm terrible. Like,
you shouldn't be. Of course you're not. Of course you're bad.
Absolutely.
Like 95% of the people that go out to play golf suck.
Yeah, but I think Friday. So Friday, I play with my one of my buddies and his dad, and they're really
some sticks. There's some sticks, huh?
Like my buddy's like a 10 handicap, and his dad's probably like a 5 or 6 handicap. Like
Were they trying to critique your swing along the way, trying to tell you what you did wrong?
They were just trying to help. Like I went with them purposefully for them to help me.
But that's the most frustrating shit ever, isn't it? Though
not to me because I enjoy that. Like I've always been a mechanics based person when it comes to sports. So it's like if you just tell me what to do, that helps me a lot.
Well, you tell me what to do, but I do it worse. Like it makes me worse.
It helped me. It helped me. Like obviously, this was only my 3rd or 4th time like actually playing, and it was the best I played. Obviously still horrible, but I was making consistent contact, and a lot of that had to do.
You were hitting it in the air, but that's usually the first.
My way to tell how it was better and to track progress was if I would make good contact, I'd look up at them and say, "Sound like a golf club hit a golf ball," and that's
Yeah, but my problem is I'm just too far gone. I'm just so cooked.
Yeah.
Give me all the pointers you want. I'm still going to be shitty. I'm still going to be really bad at the game.
But it's at least fun to be able to hit the ball.
Of course, yeah. There's a couple shots. If you're bad like me, or probably like you, there's like a couple of shots that bring you back. A couple of shots a day. That's all it takes.
That's all it takes.
You're going to have 99 terrible ones. You have 2 good ones where you just place it like 2 feet from the pin, and you're like, damn, this is why. This is why I came out today.
This is why I'm out here.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm officially in. Bought some clubs that came in a couple weeks ago, played on Friday, and now I'm kind of hooked after just one real round of golf. So
okay, all right. So we're gonna have to golf soon.
Yeah, definitely. We got to do it. But with that being said, like I said, pretty chill weekend for me. Not much else to talk about. You got anything else before we move on? Because we do got some news to talk about this week. If you're ready.
I'm ready to hop in, brother. Let's do it.
Well, we're going to start with Memphis football this week. They got one of their biggest commitments of all time in 4-star quarterback Antwann Hill. This was kind of a developing situation that's been happening over the last several weeks. You and I have talked about it both on here and on your show over at 92.9. That Memphis looked like they were a major player after he came on an official visit. And here we are now. He is committed. He is, according to 247 Sports, the third highest rated commit in Memphis football history, the highest quarterback by a pretty wide margin. The highest quarterback before him was Riley Ferguson coming out of JUCO, who was a 3-star. So, like I said, pretty wide margin, highest quarterback commit ever. It's really big news. I mean, if you get a guy that's in your top 5 all-time commit list, that's obviously big. But being a quarterback just carries a different weight. And so this is massive for the Memphis football program.
I mean, you say one of the biggest commits in the history of the program. I say the biggest commit in the history of the program because of what it signifies. It signifies you're on the same level as some of these Power Fives, like the Floridas of the world in the NIL race. You can recruit with them. You can win battles against them. You're at the top in a place all of your own in the group of 5 in the recruiting ranks. You could break into the top 40, top 35, according to 247 or on 3 as far as recruiting class. Recruiting classes concerned and their rankings. And, the reason it's the biggest, it's a quarterback. And what are you going to be missing after this season where you have high hopes? You're going to be missing Seth Hennigan after 4 years, giving you all he could give you, phenomenal quarterback. It signifies you have stability going into the future. Yep. And what does the future hold? At least for right now, you have a chance at the college football playoff. You're at the top of the AAC, and maybe there's some movement up and down depending on how the power structure of college football and college athletics moves in the next few years. I think this is probably the biggest high school commitment in the history of the program because of what it actually signifies, and being that it's a quarterback, the most important position on the field.
Yeah, I completely agree. And we've talked about what Fred Smith and FedEx have meant to what's happening in the direction that the University of Memphis football program is trending. And this is, I feel like, the biggest example that we can point to now up to this point, because you just don't see group of 5 schools land elite level quarterbacks. I mean, he's pretty much consensus top 15, top 20 quarterback in the country. And that just doesn't happen for a group of 5 schools. So then you start to break it down. Well, why is that happening? The biggest factor in it has to be NIL, has to be money.
If you're not competing in that realm, you're not going to get them.
Right. And clearly Memphis is at least competitive at this point. We don't know what the offer was from them. We don't know what the offer was from Florida. We'll never know that, but we do know that Memphis is competitive. I truly believe if there was this huge, wide gap between the two, it probably would have been an easier decision for Antwann to go elsewhere. But I think this is a trend that we'll continue to see with group of 5 schools. If you have competitive NIL money, it just makes more sense for a player like Antwann Hill to come to Memphis than it does to Florida. I mean, look at Florida. We've talked about it, what they're going through off the field, Billy Napier, Jaden Rashada, that whole thing, just the struggles that Florida has had overall under Billy Napier. And then you look at, they got the number 1 quarterback in DJ Lagway in this previous class. And so if Antwann Hill is to go to Florida, he could be sitting for 2, 3, 4 years before he ever gets a chance. And then, does he go there for a year or 2 and then transfer? Then he doesn't have any tape. And does he go lower? It makes sense because at Memphis, Seth Hennigan's leaving after this year. Competition is very, very thin. You've got a freshman in Arrington Maiden who will be your primary competition. Like Antwann Hill from day one is going to be the favorite to win the Memphis quarterback position for next year as a true freshman. That's got to be very attractive along with the NIL money that Memphis can present now.
No, it's funny because it's like people will immediately attribute it to FedEx. And yes, that's fair. But you also see now that there's a somewhat level playing field with Memphis and some of the people in the Power Five that they're trying to compete against in recruiting battles, now that the NIL stuff is relatively even, you start to see the football aspect win out, right? They had 10 wins last year. I want to go play for them. They're at the top of the group of 5. They're only competing with 4 schools: Liberty, Tulane, the UTSA, Boise State, schools like that. And then you also see the fact that, like, at the group of 5, when you have this set of resources compared to a place like Florida, you already brought up Billy Napier, the stability at a place like this seems to be a little bit higher than the middle of the road SEC or Big Ten programs.
Yeah.
Because it takes you 1 year at one of those schools to completely kill if you're a coach, completely kill the job you've done.
Yep.
You could go 10-2 1 year. Next year, you turn around 5-7. You're directly on the hot seat. You could get fired and ousted very, very quickly. I just think there's a level of stability and opportunity at a place like Memphis and the group of 5 that is going to help them attract recruits now that the NIL playing field is relatively balanced. People are going to immediately point to the NIL, and yes, that's a massive part of this thing, but it's only one aspect of this thing.
I agree.
Football reasons, in my opinion, the football reasons are what ultimately got Antwann Hill to the University of Memphis. Doesn't have to sit behind DJ Lagway. Doesn't have to worry about a coach being fired.
Yeah, I think it's definitely multifaceted, and to add another layer to it, you and I both know this well. Alongside coaches and top recruiters and stuff like that, a top-tier quarterback prospect can be a huge asset for a program when it comes to recruiting. And I'll explain that a little bit because quarterbacks have a very big outreach. Usually they go to all these camps. They're very well known in their region specifically, but also a national recruit like Antwann Hill, I'm sure, has connections outside of the state of Georgia where he plays high school football. So you think of 7-on-7, you think of camps, you think of all these different things that quarterbacks do alongside with when you're playing. Say you're playing a team in your district or your conference or whatever, they're all going to know who the quarterback is, especially if he's an elite level player like Antwann Hill. So I'm sure everyone in that area of Georgia knows who Antwann Hill is. Most players in the state of Georgia know who Antwann Hill is. And then the people that he's cross-pollinated with at camps and stuff like that, they know who he is as well. So that's the far outreach. The close outreach for this one is a little bit different because he has a top 150 overall player on his team at Houston County, who is now between Memphis and Florida State and will make a decision on the 4th of July, and Peyton Joseph. And if he were to commit, at least on some platforms, he would be even higher ranked than Antwann Hill. I think on On3 and 247, he's higher than Antwann Hill on both of those. On 3, I think he's 181-ish. I think that's right. And 247, I think he's 133. So it would be another top 2, top 3 commit all time for the University of Memphis. And you have to like their chances because Florida State was the clear and obvious favorite until Antwann Hill made his decision to commit to Memphis. And now you got to feel like Memphis has a really good chance in this. So we could already see, as soon as in the next couple of weeks, that Antwann Hill committing to Memphis is a big deal, not only for what he brings, but for the players that he could also bring to Memphis.
Yeah, we're talking about Peyton Joseph, number 7 interior offensive lineman on the board, according to 247. It's going to be down between Florida State and Memphis, and I think most people are expecting it to be Florida State, but still to be involved in the last 2 schools on a dude who is a 4-star, top 10 recruit at his particular position, it's just a clear change in thought process. And I will say this, I think a lot of these Florida State, suggestions or crystal balls that were coming through from 247 were previous to the Antwann Hill Jr. commitment, because that could sway a lot of this thing. You want to, that's one of your best buddies, a guy who's been protecting you your entire career at Houston County High School. like maybe that very likely could sway his decision. Now, I don't know what Florida State would offer in NIL compared to Memphis, but it's got to be somewhat similar for an interior offensive lineman coming out of high school. But that's going to be really fun to watch. It looks like he's going to announce on the 4th of July is the thought process. But again, even if they don't get him, there's just a massive shift in everything we believe to be true about what this Memphis football program can do and can be with with the talent they're just going to accrue over the years.
Yeah, being in the conversation with, for players like Peyton Joseph is not the norm at Memphis, but what we're seeing, I think the first sign was, getting a player of Elijah Herring's caliber relatively quickly out of the transfer portal. Antwann Hill now being in it for a top 150 guy and Peyton Joseph. Like, we're just seeing kind of the steam build for the University of Memphis football program. And I think what we're talking about now as very uncommon and very rare, it has a really good chance to become the norm. Like, if Memphis is able to take care of business on the field this year and continue to build upon what they did last year, both on the field and what they're currently doing, between the transfer portal and this upcoming 2025 recruiting class, I think it can become the norm relatively quickly.
Yeah. And I'll also say this too, with these two recruits we're talking about, Houston County High School in Warner Robins, Georgia. That's been a breeding ground in the past for really good college football players. I think Jake Fromm was previously, he went there. Like, that is a very, very good school. And, to get high level recruits out of a school like that is impressive in itself. Now, I'm going to pose this to you. And to me, I already have my answer, and it's an astounding yes. Is this the biggest year in the history of the Memphis football program?
I think it becomes absolutely, because not only what they could accomplish this year, when you just look at it for face value, don't even really consider recruiting or NIL or anything like that. When you just look for face value this season, like, this is the first time Memphis could ever legitimately compete for a national championship or a college football playoff spot. So that in of itself, that could make it.
And recruiting could tie into it, right? Because
exactly
last year you have Antwann Hill Jr. committing to a team that beat Iowa State in the AutoZone Liberty Bowl. What happens if you run through, win conference, get to the college football playoff?
Exactly.
How much better does your recruiting get at that point?
Right.
I just think this could be a massive turning point for this program if everything goes to plan and they maybe even exceed expectations. There's never been an opportunity at a national championship. You've never been able to entice players of this caliber from an NIL standpoint. Ryan just got his extension. How does it all look when it comes together? I think it breeds a very exciting time, but also I think every game is going to be, everybody's just sort of a little bit nervous watching every single game, because every single game is going to matter.
Yeah, there is a lot riding on it, because there is so much that could come from it. Like, the fruits of this year could last. Who knows?
Yeah.
You can't really put a cap
Decades.
on how long that could last. So, yes, this year is huge. Talked about the on the field stuff, but I think you hit the nail on the head with recruiting. And if you listen to what people say in the industry, in the recruiting industry, like, where do the classes come from? Like, you see all these good classes. Where do they come from? How do they build into that? A lot of that, if you look at a current class, so if you look at, let's say, the 2025 recruiting class, that a lot of that's coming from the 2024 season. What the staff built during that, the relationships that were built during that time, the success on the field obviously has a lot to play into that, both team and individual player success. So it's all kind of a year behind. So if you have a really good 2025 or 2024, 2025 season, then your 2026 class is likely going to be even better. And that's just kind of the way that recruiting works. So this year sets up a better recruiting class for next year, because if you're playing in nationally televised games, if you're playing in conference championships, if you're playing, at Florida State and, both teams are expected to be really good and you have that national stage, you're getting recruits interested early, and then it pays dividends later if you continue to have success throughout the season. So that's kind of the way that the recruiting calendar works as far as how does this class play into the season. That's kind of, if you hear it explained, that's kind of how it works. So if this is a 10, 11 win season with a AAC championship and a college football playoff berth, like you better believe that the back end of the 2025 class, the 2025 transfer class, and the 2026 recruiting class are going to be the best that you've ever seen in Memphis.
Yeah, and Ryan's already done a good job previously to this year of recruiting. Now, have you seen him speak in front of a camera recently or just speak to people? Man, he's got a different vigor about him, doesn't he?
He does.
He's got a little bit of there's a little cockiness to him, a little edge about him, a little arrogance. That's what you want to see, though, because he knows what he has. He knows the resources that are available to him, and he knows what's ahead of him.
Yeah, completely agree. All right,
granted, they haven't accomplished a damn thing heading into next year, but they can. They have an opportunity to.
All right, Gabe, transition us over to Memphis basketball real quick.
So what do we want to start with? I guess we'll start with sort of go in order here. Joe Cooper. Joe Cooper talked to Parth Upadhyaya at the Daily Memphian about his time at the University of Memphis. And, of course, Joe Cooper from the city, and he was a walk-on. And last year he got some time toward the end of the year to sort of show who he was. And I thought he played well in his limited minutes. But he ends up no longer being on the roster. And we were wondering what was going on. Parth Upadhyaya reached out for comment. And basically Joe Cooper said that it was the worst experience he's had in his basketball career. I don't like hearing that. And I think this is it's a bit of a trend, at least this offseason. Jonathan Pierre said something similar on his way out. I'm sure there's other guys that echo those sentiments that are elsewhere now. But to be honest with you, it's not that hard to understand why last year and that basketball season on that particular team with that particular set of circumstances, it's not hard to understand why it would have been one of the worst basketball years of your life, because it was very frustrating, very up and down, a lot of moving pieces. Never really got their feet under them once they got into conference play. But I can also see the aspect of this for Joe. He was kind of a fan favorite down the stretch of the season, and he got some good run, and he probably felt like he was earning his keep a little bit. And then at the end of the year, Penny Hardaway just sort of phased him out and said, no, we don't really need you here. We need to free up this roster spot. Didn't really talk to him. I could see where Joe, in his particular situation, if I'm using if I'm being empathetic here, put myself in his shoes, I can see where he feels a little bit used and abused by this staff and Penny Hardaway. Like, you used me for that one brief shining moment. Then on the back end, even though I gave you some good minutes and in a time of need, you're just sort of not talking to me, throwing me to the wayside like I'm a piece of trash. Like, I can get where Joe Cooper would be very, very annoyed by that.
Yeah, because I can't remember if Penny actually came out and said it, or if it was kind of hinted at about, like, I think it might have been after the Rice game when he was like, with the players that want to be on the floor and deserve to be on the floor will be on the floor. And is it? Am I right on the timelines at around the time that Joe?
Somewhere, well, that was before the Rice game, when he played that ridiculous starting lineup,
right,
that lost them the game,
But he kind of hinted at Joe was one of the guys that was doing things the right way and deserved to be on the floor and stuff.
And by the way, he said that like no less than 20 times over the course of his career. Right. The guys that want to play are going to be on the floor.
Right. But it's kind of strange that, at least in my head, I mean, just from like Penny's comments and Joe actually getting playing time, being a walk-on and stuff, like it just felt like if there was anybody that was one of his, more favored players on the team, right, it would have been Joe. Like he glowed a lot about his work ethic, and obviously rewarded him that with putting him on the floor. So just in my head, at least, it was like, okay, Joe, like Penny's got Joe on a pedestal. Like, he's a huge fan of Joe and the way that he works and that he does things the right way, even though he might not be the biggest, strongest, fastest, most athletic. Like, he comes to work every day. He comes to practice the right way, and that's why he's getting minutes on the floor. So it's just kind of a weird juxtaposition between, in my head, what I thought, was going on behind the scenes. And then, at least from Joe's comments, that's all we can really go off of, because it's what we have. But it just seems kind of strange that someone that in my head I felt like was very favorable to Penny did not reciprocate those feelings, at least in his comments. And just to put it out there, like, just to be fair, sometimes if things happen behind the scenes and a player's hurt, they can outlash a little bit. They can come after somebody a little bit.
And if they get a publication or someone to pick up their quotes, they pick up the quote. And honestly, I'm glad the Daily Memphian wrote that story, because I think it was fair, and you tell both sides of the story whenever you get the opportunity.
Right.
But I don't know. I also see it this way. Joe Cooper is one of how many in college basketball of walk-ons or roster spots that have been the coach is just like, yeah, move on. Like he's one of how many? 1,000?
Yeah.
1,500? Where a player's like, hey, we need this roster spot for somebody else. Move on.
Right.
And he's a walk-on in the end of the day. Like you can have some concerns about, okay, is he going to spread some foul things about Penny throughout the city of Memphis? You can worry about, what last year was like and if that tarnishes Penny's reputation in front of some of the players and what can they spread to other guys that may be recruited by Penny. But I think in the end of the day, I didn't really take this thing that seriously, right? Like that's the biggest thing I have to say is in the end of the day, Joe Cooper was a walk-on that was expected to play 0 minutes last year.
Right.
And probably if he was on the team this year, would be expected to play just about 0 minutes this year. So I'm not going to spend too much time, going after Penny for that. Now, what I will do, right, well, if it comes to going after Penny, what I will do is break down his comments after the Joe Cooper news. He had a radio show appearance with Marcus Taylor. I think it's a TaylorMade show or the TaylorMade podcast. Kind of strange some of the places Penny's been speaking. He doesn't really speak in the local media all that much, but he goes, he picks his spots. Let's just put it that way. He picks his spots. But Penny went on and on about the media and how he's being treated and how he thinks it's unfair. He said there was a lot more negative and personal things toward me this year out of all years because he thought it was a layup is what he said. He did go on to say, like, I need to be better. But then he ended with this, and this is the quote I really want to focus on because I just found it. I brought up Ryan Silverfield in like this arrogant way, like he's becoming a little more arrogant, but it's in a positive manner, right? He's like talking up the players, talking up the program. Let's go. I think there's a negative arrogance about what Penny said in this quote. He said, quote, I feel like if I leave, talking about leaving the University of Memphis, it's going to go down hard. So I got to take the bumps and hits. I'm fighting in the ring and in the corner right now. I'm fighting both. But he says he thinks he is the key to success here at the University of Memphis. If I'm reading that quote correctly, quite frankly, if I leave, this thing's going to shit. That's basically what he's saying. That's what he said. I got to say, that is not only is it incorrect because of the resources and the history and the amount of coaching talent that every single athletic department has always been able to bring in to coach the University of Memphis basketball program. I think it's arrogant as hell. I think it's a little bit like, like a hero complex, I guess. Like it's very frustrating to see him say that about this program, about this athletic department, about his alma mater. I thought it was very poorly aimed. I don't think it was measured well enough. And I just think he's playing up just completely wrong.
To me, it's just a really strange comment. Kind of like you're getting at, because it's, at least to me, that's what it sounds like he's saying, or it is what he's saying. I mean, without me at the University of Memphis, it's going down. Like it's going to go downhill if I'm not here. And that just, I don't know. It just, that comment just doesn't really sit right.
It shouldn't sit right with anybody.
No. And I mean, is it good to have confidence? Is it good to feel like, you're keeping this thing afloat? I guess to an extent, but it just feels a little bit too much to be like, if I'm not here, it's going downhill. And that's why I've stayed here, regardless of how difficult it's been. Like nobody understands how hard it is to be the head coach at the University of Memphis. And without me, then it's going downhill. It just seems like a very strange comment to make. And I mean, maybe if Memphis is a national championship contender, if Memphis is, made it to multiple Sweet 16s, Elite Eights, Final Fours in his time, and they're competing for national championships every year, then that comment makes sense. Like if they're competing for a national championship every single year, then yeah, he's probably right in that sentiment. But
you've won one NCAA tournament game in 6 years,
right?
But no offense. I thought until last year you're on an upward trajectory, and he mentioned that. Like I thought you were. But like when you say it's going to go down and like the program's going to go up in flames, like what do you mean?
Yeah.
They're in the AAC where they're going to fall below Rice. Right. Kiss my ass. That's not happening anytime soon. As much as he believes this in his head, the University of Memphis is in a conference where they're unto their own when it comes to history, resources, and the amount of fans that rally behind that program, particular program. They are one of one in this conference. If he leaves, it's not going to all of a sudden change.
Right.
I maybe you would struggle with player getting as opposed to Penny Hardaway, but maybe you'd gain an X's and O's and you'd be okay in the conference. And hell, what if Penny Hardaway was gone? They brought in Will Wade. You wouldn't fall that far off with player getting. Right. You'd be okay. I found it very arrogant and off-putting. I'm just going to be as plain up and honest as possible. I found it very off-putting and kind of offensive. Right, yeah. Because you're basically saying that this basketball program without me is nothing. It's going to completely go downhill, and you guys are going to realize what you had with me.
Yeah, I think it is very off-putting, and just like watching and reading further into it, and maybe I just totally missed the buck on this. I'm not exactly sure. I mean, yes, was the media critical of Penny this year? Yeah, they were critical because Memphis was a top 10 team in the country and really looked like they could be a Sweet 16, Elite 8 type team, and it fell off. And so objectively, it wasn't good. And I think that was told. But to see like the way that he says how hard everybody came down on him this year and how against him the media was and stuff, like, do I understand that people were critical? Yes, but we've talked about this since last season. Like, it was, for the most part, it was warranted. Like, the things that people were saying were objective. They weren't shot. It wasn't to like knock Penny off of a perch or knock him off a pedestal. It was just objectively talking about the team is struggling and they can't seem to get it back on the rails. And as the head coach, like, you take the fall for that. It is your job to take the fall for that. And so with him just being like, everybody was coming after me this year and, throwing stones, and I can't remember the exact quotes, but it was all about how critical everyone was. And I don't feel like it was, at least what I saw, I can only speak for the things that I've seen. I don't feel like I personally saw anything that was overly critical or unfair throughout the season.
I think he's been treated unfairly from like national media because they don't like how he got the job. Sure. But local media, like, here's my problem is it's like the way that this gets talked about sometimes, it's like you'd rather me and you and the seats we're in talking about this, my show at 92.9, whatever. But people listen to us for their sports information and to hear our commentary on it. It's like, do they want me to lose my credibility by shooting rainbows out of my ass when they lose to Rice?
Right.
No. I'm going to tell you what went wrong. I'm going to tell you how bad it is, how embarrassing it is. That's how it should be. You ride with the highs and you ride with the lows. That's what being the coach for Memphis basketball is about. And also, I will say this too, a lot of the shit that seemingly gets into his crawl about like where he's making it, they're making it personal. Like, you're the one who's thrown out the team chemistry stuff. You're the one who's thrown out, personality clashes and where you've gone wrong in the past with certain personalities being on the team. Like, it's not like we're attacking your character. It's not like we're almost regurgitating what you're saying in certain pressers.
That's what I was about to say. It's not like narratives are being created.
He creates them. If there's narratives created, he mostly creates them.
That's what I'm saying. The media is not just creating narratives. It's weird. It's very strange.
It's strange to me, but it's just, it also, like, there's this weird, and this is mostly like first name bunch of numbers on Twitter where they're like, you want to see Penny fail. Hell no, I don't. First of all, Tiger basketball being good, you know who that's good for?
Us.
Me and you, Christian. It's really good for us. Right. Our views go up, sell more sponsorships, you do all this shit. And if Penny Hardaway is the one leading them to the promised land, to a Final Four and national championship, oh my gosh, who gets a positive off of that? Who gets just as much out of that? Me and you. Like, I don't get why there's this overwhelming thought process with people that are just sort of Penny apologists or whatever, that just sort of, oh, you want to see Penny fail? Hell no, I don't.
Not at all.
That's not fun to talk about. That doesn't give us views. That doesn't give us ratings. You don't listen to us as much when everything is bad.
Right. Absolutely.
So it's just foolish to me. It's always been foolish.
All right, Gabe, we're going to take a quick break. I know we're both itching to welcome our producer, Kenny Stubblefield, back into the show for the Hot 3. So I'm not going to drag it out. We're going to take a quick break. And after his balmy beach vacation, we're going to get Kenny Stubblefield back on for the Hot 3.
The 4 names have popped up. I think of the 4, we're both kind of in agreement that Allnut is not our number 1 choice by any means.
Yeah, it's nice that he has ties here. What does he give you, right? I don't want to say Buffalo's gone to the shitter since he's been in command over there, but what they done is it's limited in terms of what he brings to the table.
Are you surprised that Jeff Crane is not on that list as interim AD? I am too.
I think a lot of people have been very impressed by him just in the Tigers on Tour stuff, just the way he's gone on the radio and talked it out.
Not only was he not listed in the article that was put out by Tim Buckley and John Martin, but both of the sources that they spoke to said that he's not even in consideration, not even going to get an interview.
That's wild to me.
Which is surprising to me.
Tune in to Tigers Untapped with TJ Willis and Trey Lasley every Wednesday at 3 p.m. on the Bluff City Media YouTube channel.
It instantly gave the Memphis Grizzlies organization credibility. What was Jerry West doing moving to Memphis to work for the Memphis Grizzlies? And I think it's the biggest acquisition the Grizzlies have ever made.
And I remember him when we were in Memphis and I was here playing, and he was GM, and we played in the summertime, and he brought in Cesare Trebansky. We got done playing, and he was like, "Well, what do you think?" And I was like, "Well, I just don't think he's an NBA player." And he's like, "No, I think he's gonna be a pro." I was like, "Well," when we got ready for the next year, Cesare Trebansky was traded with me to Phoenix. So I guess that's how much he thought he and I were gonna be. Any type influence on the Memphis Grizzlies. You want to give me basketball advice?
Who'd the Grizzlies get back?
I was like Bo Outlaw.
Bo Outlaw, that's right, it was. It was Bo Outlaw.
Tune in to the Night Court podcast with your hosts, Rob Fisher and Brevin Knight, on the Bluff City Media YouTube channel. Join Daniel Greer and Nathan Qualls this Wednesday at 7 p.m. for the Grizz 901 live draft show. Draft experts Chip Williams Jr. and Ryan Meadows will help the guys break down each pick as they happen. Join us live on the Bluff City Media YouTube channel.
There he is.
There he is.
I'm back, baby.
Yeah, good to see you, brother. Good to see you.
I love it. It's good to see you guys, man. Listen, Christian and I had a really good time 2 weeks ago when we did the show.
Yeah.
But Gabe, we missed you, man.
Always.
I missed you guys, man. It's been too long.
We missed you a lot. Listen, we had a commercial with the Tigers and Tap guys. They recorded that episode that had the AD search with the 4 guys that were involved in the AD search. It came out a few days later that actually Jeff Crane is involved in that search and that he's getting an interview and all that kind of stuff. So I did that. That was filmed before. Of course he is.
My dog Jeff, man. Honestly, though, if whoever they hire, I know we're about to get in the hot 3. Whoever they hire, he needs to stay around. He oversaw so much with the FedEx NIL deal.
Yes,
he oversaw so much with the stadium renovations. He was almost point man on both those projects.
Yeah.
Regardless of what happens, I want to see Jeff stay in Memphis.
Yep, it's a good guy, man. You need that continuity, right? As you kind of move into different eras of the Memphis athletic department. Let's get to the hot 3, boys. You ready?
Yes, sir.
Oh man, this is a wild story. Podcaster extraordinaire, former NBA player, JJ Redick, is now the Lakers head coach. Okay, I shouldn't laugh because before I know what y'all think about it, but is this crazy to y'all?
It's wild. It is absolutely wild. I mean, that's really all I can say. It's wild. And this started as a rumor probably 2 months ago. And then
shout out to James Charania.
Right. And then you see all the Dan Hurley stuff and you're like, okay.
Hey, Gabe, real quick.
I think they came out and said it. Like JJ Redick was never in serious consideration. Like that was all fake. Yada yada yada. And here we are. JJ Redick is the Lakers coach with literally zero coaching experience. And if you don't,
no, he's had coaching experience. He was a volunteer 4th grade coach this year.
Yes, he was. Let's not forget. He did do that.
But if you don't think that LeBron James's hand was at work here, I think you're pretty blind to stuff because it's about as obvious as it gets.
What was that movie with Martin Lawrence where he coached the kids team? Do you remember that?
Never seen it.
Okay, yeah. JJ Redick did his Martin Lawrence impression last year as volunteer 4th grade coach. I mean, where do I even start? Ridiculous. It's just a ridiculous hire. And of all the reports I read about, LeBron's not involved with this coaching search. He's butted out. Shut the hell up. JJ Redick would have no real opportunity to be the Lakers head coach if it weren't for LeBron. And I heard Brian Windhorst put it in a pretty meaningful way. He basically said, everybody was worried about JJ getting his first official interview with the Lakers, and that happened after the Danny Hurley thing. And we're like, I thought he had interviewed already. He was interviewing with LeBron on the Mind the Game podcast weekly or whatever, bi-weekly through the back half of the season. Yep. Those were interviews in themselves. They were running through Lakers sets and where they went wrong and where they didn't go wrong. This thing has been the wheels have been turning on this thing for a while. Now, here's my biggest takeaway from the Lakers and that organization. For a brand like the Lakers to have no actual real plan going forward, it just sort of throws me for a loop. They don't have direction. Let's think about the 2 coaches that they were about to hire. One, Danny Hurley. That hire, to me, signals, we want to see if we can maximize LeBron and AD in this iteration. But honestly, we're going to give him a 6 to 8 year contract. Let's see what he can do with the next set of circumstances.
Yeah.
Let's see if he can bring along a young team. I always thought that was the better direction to go. Obviously, Dan Hurley turns that down. But then when Dan Hurley turns it down, you shift your direction to, okay, we're thinking 4 years. If you know anything about NBA head coaching searches and the contracts they get, 4 years is so small. That is just, hey, we'll see if you can do it. If not, we're going to fire you in 2 years. That's what that contract is.
Literally.
And that set of circumstances that they're setting JJ Redick up for is, okay, you can maximize LeBron and AD. We'll go from there. It's just 2 separate set of circumstances and direction between Dan Hurley and JJ Redick, and they end up on the worst of the 2, in my opinion. Where you're not thinking about the future. You're just like, what can you do to maximize right now? And I don't think that the Lakers roster is close to being able to maximize. And JJ Redick getting to a Western Conference Finals or an NBA Finals appearance is going to be so unreasonably hard. I mean, obviously, I bet he doesn't do it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, who's to say that it doesn't pan out and JJ Redick doesn't become a great coach? Because I do think he is a good basketball mind. I don't think there's any arguing that point. But to me, it boils down to, how is this any kind of upgrade over Darvin Ham, who they just fired? To me, the only difference between JJ Redick and Darvin Ham, outside of the obvious NBA experience that Darvin Ham has that JJ Redick does not, is that JJ Redick is in LeBron James's favor and Darvin Ham is not. And therein lies the difference as to why JJ Redick is now the head coach and Darvin Ham is no longer with the Lakers.
You just, for an organization that storied with that many championships, you just have no real vision or direction. It's like you're just doing yourself a freaking disservice. Now, it's kind of a double-edged sword with LeBron, though, because I think at this point they're kind of being held hostage by LeBron.
Yes.
In that whole thing, he's 39 going on 40, year 22, 23, whatever the hell it is at this point. But also you could make the case at the beginning, LeBron saved them. LeBron saved them from the depths of hell. They were awful before LeBron got there.
Yep.
So it's become this double-edged sword where, yeah, we needed you at the beginning, but right now, you're hampering us and keeping us from growing into the future.
Right.
It's a weird sort of reality that they are being faced with, and they clearly have no idea how to navigate it.
Not at all. No, it's become pretty obvious that this is just, hey, we'll see if this works out.
Flying by the seat of their pants. They're just
100%.
You throw enough shit at the wall, hopefully something will stick.
Hopefully something sticks.
Right. We'll see. We'll see. I don't expect this to stick though.
Kenny, I think you're muted, brother.
Dadgummit, I have a special announcement to make based on this JJ Redick Lakers coach news. We are starting a new podcast at Bluff City Media with Christian Fowler. He is going to be hosting a podcast with Dak Prescott. Right? Is that not just in terms of how this works, right? Isn't that right?
I'm not understanding. So Christian's going to be the next head coach of the Dallas Cowboys?
Hey, listen.
Hey, who's to say that I'm not?
Who's to say?
Why not? Hey, you podcast extraordinaire. That's how you introduce JJ Redick.
JJ, hey, and JJ Redick is no longer doing the podcast.
Yeah, and then I love how, like, what was the first question he answered? What do you want to dispel about all these hot takes? He said, I don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
Like, okay. All right.
Okay.
Yeah, and then he dropped another F-bomb. I'm like, I think you do give a rat's ass. I think you
clearly care. You clearly care. Yeah, it's wild. So be checking out that new Christian Fowler podcast coming out soon. It's going to be dope. And he's also going to be coaching Pop Warner this year. So it's going to be great. Like,
honestly, if he's going to be the coach of the Cowboys, he's got to get somebody like CeeDee Lamb, because Dak, who knows? They're not extending Dak. So it's going to have to be Micah Parsons probably.
Oh yes, okay, that's it.
So tell Dak to bug the hell off. we're gonna get Micah in here with Christian.
All right, let's stick in the NBA. Topic number 2, the 2024 NBA draft is coming up. And I know you guys want to get specific on some things, but let's just kind of go 30,000 foot view on this draft. This has been kind of described as a really weak draft. But does this weak draft not make for like really fun conversations for us?
Absolutely.
Because like nobody knows what the hell is going to happen.
It's not predictable at all. And
Which
that makes
it's going to make me want to punch Woj and Shams directly in their noses draft night when they just spoil every pick.
Right.
Well, hey, listen,
off.
Turn your Twitter, turn your X.com notifications off and tune in to the Bluff City Media
Yes, do that.
Draft Show special. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to be going at it live with the entire draft. But man, I mean, we don't even know, like Alex Sarr, the consensus.
Who's the first pick? Zachary Shea?
Or Donovan Clingan? Or is it Alex Sarr, who Atlanta can't even get to Atlanta to come and do an interview with them? Like, who is it? Like, nobody knows.
And then on the Grizzlies front, what in the world? Like, here's my thing at this point with the Grizzlies. How many rumors have you seen where it's like, oh, Grizzlies are going to move up to 3, Grizzlies are going to move up to 5, Grizzlies are going to move up to 6 to get Donovan Clingan? How many have you seen? Like a million, right?
Yeah.
I have resigned myself to the fact that that's not going to happen, because when was the last time that Zach Kleiman in this front office telegraphed what they were going to do around the draft?
I'm telling you, bro.
Never have they done that. So all those rumors mean nothing to me when it comes to Zach Kleiman in the Grizzlies front office.
Unless it's not coming from Zach Kleiman. What if it's coming from Houston? Right? Because that's the whole thing, right? Is because Mark Stein just put out while y'all recording this episode that the league insiders have said that the heat around.
Yeah, dude, this is not the first time I've seen Mark Stein rumor something about the Grizzlies that never came close to fruition.
I feel you.
Like even the Marcus Smart trade last year was completely out of left field.
Yeah.
Like you just never know what they're gonna do. So like what okay, let's try to break it down as best we can. We don't sticking it down, right? Just generally speaking. Do you think
you had to come out?
If I'm saying 70% they move from 9. Up or
70% they move from 9. Okay.
Yes. That's what I'm throwing it at.
But if they don't move from 9, who do you want them to get?
Devin Carter, or if Dalton Knecht fell, which it doesn't look like. Reed Shepherd won't fall that far.
What about Ron Holland?
Oh God, I like Ron Holland so much. I think he could be like in an ulterior universe, in a different universe. If he played better with the G League Ignite, he might be the #1 overall prospect. But
How
my
does-
problem
how does he fit?
continues to be with Ron Holland is you got G.G. Jackson here.
Yeah,
Right.
man.
What are you doing with Ron Holland? Like, I guess that you could think about him in 2 years and what he could develop into, and I believe in his development and what he can be, but does it really make sense for the Grizzlies right now to do that? Not really. I know people in Grizzlies Twitter are in love with the kid. I
Because
get that.
he's going to be a good player.
Yes,
So
but
what
like
is- how does he fit?
I don't know
Does he-
where he fits on this team
Right,
at this current.
100%.
And I get most people will be like, you can never have enough good wings because then you can use them
Mm.
as trade pieces. But it's like if he's not helping me on the court in this potential for a championship window to open up, what good?
What are we
does it-
doing? Yeah.
I don't need to draft somebody as a trade piece because that's like
No.
signing a
Who don't draft somebody to just I want to dangle you at the trade deadline.
Right.
That's like signing a prenup before you get married. It's like signing the
Yeah.
beginning of the end before you even tie
Yes.
the knot, right? Like
That would never happen.
No. Let me ask you this. I got another trade rumor that's been out there that
Okay.
I want to hear y'all's thought processes on. All right. It is clear that Detroit has been targeting Nick Claxton. They want Nick Claxton, but they also have 74 bigs on that team already. Like their whole
Jalen
roster.
Duren. Give me Jalen Duren.
So the question is, the rumor has been out there, Jalen
Jalen
Duren and another contract, potentially a Quentin Grimes, maybe could fit money wise.
You know-
It could work for Santi Aldama in the 9.
Oh, I'd do it in a heartbeat. I'd do it for
100.
Santi and number 9, just Jalen Duren. Don't
Yeah.
even throw in another
Agree.
piece.
Yeah, don't even need anything else.
Give me Santi and number 9. Santi's
Yeah,
going to get
Duren.
lost in the wing rotation.
Yeah.
Number 9 is a weird pick in this draft. If they pick Donovan Clingan at number 5, I don't know what that would look like. Kick the tires, see what they think or don't think of Jalen Duren. And my first thought process when I heard this rumor about Jalen Duren was like, how valuable is he to the Pistons? Because he's one of their young stars that could
But
turn
they've got
into
like 4 of them already.
But they have a new GM coming in who may not be tied to Jalen Duren. And Jalen Duren's defensive splits are horrendous in Detroit, but they could get so much better here in Memphis. I'm not
Because-
that he'll be playing next to
because
Jaren
he's next to
anyway.
Jaren Jackson.
Right.
And also, like, Taylor Jenkins, even last year with 33 players, had a top 10 defense in the league.
Yeah, come on, man. What we
Like
talking
he'll find a way
about?
to maximize, Jalen Duren as opposed to whatever the hell they were doing in Detroit the past couple of years. So I think if you can make that happen, you make that happen. But you still have to find depth. And you're not going to have number 9 at that point. Go find somebody else on the open market. I know Daron Sharp's been out there,
Yeah,
and he's
his
good
name.
when he's on the floor, but he doesn't play that many minutes right now, and he's still relatively young. I mean, you're still going to have to find depth, even if you get a guy like Jalen Duren. But
Yeah. But if you can get him, do it.
I think without question,
Yeah.
without question, the only argument you could have against it is if you took like a center in this year's draft, you have 4 years of team control as opposed to the 2 with Jalen.
That's
Duren.
true. That's true.
Right.
That's tough. But if you had to get I've said this on numerous shows on Bluff City Media's airwaves network, whatever. You have to look at your draft options, your picks, however you construct your roster around the big 3 that the Grizzlies have. Like
Yes.
what fits them the best? Like how do you maximize what those 3 guys do? We're not looking for a 20-point a game score. We're looking to find somebody that fits what they do well.
Yep.
And what is it that Ja Morant needs out of a big for this team to be successful? He needs a guy who can screen, a guy who can rebound, and a guy who can be a lob threat. And that's it.
That's perfect. And you know what's really fun about the Jalen Duren thing? He is truly one of the best screeners in the NBA.
Yes.
Already. He was
Yes.
3rd in screen assists last year
That's what I'm saying.
on that shitty, terrible team.
Terrible.
and
Terrible.
I think he's top 10 in offensive rebounding percentage.
Come on, man.
And he's athletic as hell. And Steven Adams was great for this team. Give him a lot of credit for that. And also, Jalen Duren can pass out of the post when he wants to, too.
Yeah.
He can really pass. But like Steven Adams, I loved on this team because he was just all dirty work, really good screener. But one thing Steven Adams never did, because it wasn't part of his repertoire, was screen and roll
Right.
action, getting to the rim, taking a lob. I will ascend into heaven if the Grizzlies can get Jalen Duren that first screen and roll that ends in a lob dunk at the rim from Ja Morant to Jalen Duren.
Yeah.
That would be beautiful.
I just salivated a little bit.
That's what I'm saying. Like I just know I know if they were able to get their hands on Jalen Duren, they could maximize everything about his career.
He perfectly fits the athletic profile of this team. 100%.
Do you guys agree with me in this, that the Grizzlies kind of already have, I look at this draft and this season upcoming as Gigi Jackson's first year with the Grizzlies. Last year to me was kind of a icing on the cake. Like, this is just his pre-season. Like, it was kind of a lost season, but one of the things you really found out that Gigi could potentially become one of those guys for the Grizzlies. Do you guys look at this as like, this is Gigi's first year with the team, and like we'll really get to see kind of how he fits with the full roster in that?
Yeah.
So like whatever you're picking, whatever you're going after, you've already got Gigi Jackson in your bag. Like, he's already there. He's already, he's going to be still one of the youngest guys in the entire NBA. Like, it's just, to me, it feels like, don't go get a guy who fits that Gigi Jackson profile, because you're already getting that Gigi Jackson profile. That's
my Ron Holland. You pinpointed my Ron Holland issue.
Yep.
The only issue I have with drafting Ron Holland.
You already got Gigi.
You have probably the most similar skill set on your team already, and he's growing into his own, and he's still 19 years old. It's like I don't want to do anything to disrupt that right now, even if he has a rough year too. I don't want to disrupt what you have going with Gigi Jackson in any way, shape, or form. I don't want to take the ball out of his hands when I don't have to.
Right. Nope. Fully agree. All right. It's going to be a fun draft. I'm excited about it, even though it's not a deep draft. I think the Grizzlies have the chance to add some really nice periphery pieces to their team that it's going to be interesting to watch. Let's get to the third topic, UFC 303. Let's preview that card. This card has gone through quite a transformation. Christian and I talked about it not this past week, but the week before, about the Conor McGregor, Michael Chandler stuff. Obviously, there was some smoke or some fire to that smoke that, they had canceled a press conference, and everybody's kind of wondering what's going on. Turns out Conor McGregor broke a pinky toe.
Yep.
Is Conor McGregor?
Would you fight with a broken pinky toe?
Dude, I've broken my pinky toe. Let me tell you. I was walking into it was like a senior in high school, walking into my bedroom with a bowl of apple pie and ice cream. And I stubbed my pinky toe on the door frame, and it was bent sideways.
The apple pie and ice cream really added to that. It really did add to that story.
But I saved. I'm
glad you brought that detail.
I didn't fall. The apple pie. I saved the apple pie. It was very important.
Hey, what's harder to fight with, though, a broken pinky toe or a torn ACL? Because Conor McGregor in his heyday, I believe, beat Chad Mendez with a torn ACL.
Hey man,
it was Mac Holloway.
On. It's harder to roll up out of bed with silk sheets. Like what's the saying?
Yeah. It's hard to get out of bed and grind when you got silk sheets.
Yeah, I don't know, man. It's just a different Conor McGregor, brother. We've known that for a while. And I'll say this, because I'm going to let you cook, Christian, on this card, and I'll add my little commentary on the side.
Okay.
I just think the UFC in the past month has just taken hit after hit after hit.
Yeah.
Oh my God! Like seeing Chandler and McGregor gone. Then you had Hamzat, who might medically retire at some point. I mean,
what is going on with that?
It's been really bad. It's been really bad for Dana White.
Yeah. No. Absolutely. You see, it's weird. Like this, for some reason, in the UFC comes in waves. Like you see it happen like this every time there's a lot of fighters fall out. It's like a month or 2 month span where it's just one after the other, after the other, after the other. And typically they adjust very well. They adjusted very well in this circumstance too. Yeah. But this is Conor McGregor. There is no pivoting from it. Like you cannot pivot from this and equal what it was or get close to equal what it was, which is what the UFC typically does. Anytime a fight falls out, they make a very good pivot, a very good transition, and everybody's kind of like, well, it's about the same. In this circumstance, casual fans are not going to feel that way. They're going to feel, oh my gosh, Conor McGregor's out. This card sucks. Objectively, as a UFC fan looking at this card is better now without Conor McGregor and Michael Chandler on it than it would have been if they were on it. Now we've got Yuri Prochazka and Alex Pereira. Much better fight than Conor McGregor and Michael Chandler. I don't care what anybody says. As two of the most exciting fighters in the UFC. And Kenny's shaking his head like he disagrees with that. And that's insane. Conor McGregor hasn't fought in nearly 3 years. Michael Chandler hasn't fought in a year and a half. And yes, Michael Chandler's exciting. Conor McGregor's exciting. But Alex Pereira and Yuri Prochazka are at the top of their game. They're in a bigger division where knockouts are more prevalent. It's a more exciting fight. Objectively, on paper, if nobody had names, it's a more exciting fight. Secondly, Brian Ortega and Diego Lopez in a co-main event is an incredible fight that we would not have gotten to see on this card if it wasn't for that falling apart.
I know you're a big Brian Ortega guy. This is the fight that I think people think Diego Lopez is going to put himself in a different stratosphere.
He could.
This is what it's discussed. Because he can chuck some knucks. Guy got pop.
Man, Brian Ortega has made it through wars with Max Holloway, war with Alexander Volkanovski. Like, Brian Ortega is not for the faint of heart. Like, the dude can take a punch. He can last. He's durable. Great conditioning, not to mention elite level jiu-jitsu. So that fight is incredible. To me, this isn't a card that's going to excite a lot of people. In my opinion, once again, objectively, it wasn't a very exciting card to begin with. I think it's improved now, even though it doesn't have the name value of Conor McGregor. I understand that. I think it's better, but I think it's a pretty middle, back of the road UFC card. Like, it's not great. It wasn't great to begin with.
I'll be watching too the first of the main card. Ian Gary and Michael Page, Venom.
Yeah, I like that fight.
That's a great fight.
That'll be fun.
And that's just
opening up, so that's a good lead in.
Yeah, that's a good fight to start it off with.
How quickly does Roman Dolidze get Anthony Smith up out of there?
I see. We were talking about this off air before the show. Like, dude, Anthony Smith is a warrior at the very least.
Can't take that away from him.
But Roman Dolidze, like, if you're just like comparing what they have done in their previous fights, sure, Roman Dolidze would make quick work of him. But he's coming up from 185.
Yeah,
like, you can't. That's not nothing.
But he's a big middleweight.
I get it, but that's not nothing. Anthony Smith has fought some big dudes. Man.
Yeah, absolutely. It should be a decent fight. The only thing I wish about this card is
Anthony Smith just won't go away, by the way.
Never.
Can we have this conversation? That guy just won't go away. Every time, it feels like every time Dana runs him out there for like the final fight of his career, where it's like he's just going to get his ass whooped, he wins.
Yeah.
He beats some up-and-comer, and you're like, how the hell did he figure that out?
58th pro fight. The fight I wish wouldn't have fallen off this card, truthfully, that was another fight that was better than McGregor Chandler to me, was Jamal Hill and Khalil Roundtree. That would have been a hell of a fight. Yeah. And
dude, I think Khalil Roundtree would have mopped him up, bro.
Oh yeah. So that spot on this card has been marred by injury, because you had Khalil Roundtree get injured and Carlos Ulberg step up. Then you had Jamal Hill pull out due to injury and Anthony Smith step up to take on Carlos Ulberg, and then Carlos Ulberg pull out due to injury, which allowed Roman Dolidze to step up and take on Anthony Smith. So that light heavyweight fight has been marred by injury the entire time. But like I said, overall, middle to back of the road UFC card. It should be fun, but it's not anything that's gonna excite a bunch of people. But it'll be good. I love Alex and Yuri are so much fun to watch.
Let's say like pay-per-view buys. If it was Michael Chandler and Conor McGregor versus now, half or less than half pay-per-view buys.
Probably
half.
Probably less than half.
Yeah.
Probably
because this one was trending towards being the biggest pay-per-view of all time.
For sure. Right? Yeah, I'd imagine. Dana's pissed. I know Dana's pissed.
Oh, he's so hurt. So upset about it.
But hey, now they're talking about bringing Conor over to the Sphere fight, the one that's in September, the one that's in the Sphere.
I think so.
Dana's the funniest, man. I know you thought UFC 300 was big, but wait till you see what I got planned for Sphere.
$16 million in.
He's a promoter. He can't turn off that promoter.
Absolutely not. To his core.
I just find it hilarious that it's like he called this fight that Sphere card. I think it's on Mexican Independence Day, and he called it the love letter to the Mexicans. You know, and they're thinking about bringing Conor, and then he tried to come out. He was
bring the most loud, arrogant Irishman
and
put him in the main event.
This man straight up with a straight face said, like Conor McGregor's loved by the Mexicans. I'm like, bro, you gotta stop, man.
He probably
is.
All right, boys. Well, that is going to do it for this week. We just want to thank everybody for joining us after a week off. We appreciate it. Hope you enjoyed this week's episode. Head over to bluffcitymedia.co. Check out everything we got there from articles, videos, and podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, as always, you can like, subscribe, comment there, as well as wherever you are listening to this podcast, whether that's Apple, Spotify, or any other platform. Once again, we appreciate you guys for joining us, and we will see you back here next week.
Thank you for listening to On the Bluff. If you enjoyed this episode, leave a rating and a review wherever you download your podcasts. Also, like and subscribe to Bluff City Media's YouTube page. Head over to www.bluffcitymedia.co for comprehensive coverage of Memphis sports and how you can become an insider.